Alright fam, the name is Xander or R, and I am here to do Vlogmas Day 2, which is my favorite book from each month. I can't take credit for this idea. I saw Locked Booktition do this and I was like, that is a good idea. So go check out Bree's channel. She's really cool. And she's doing a lot more videos than I am. So she has like, you know, videos from like the early December that you can watch. And she did this really cool Halloween thing too, like it was cool. I didn't participate because it was in October and I wasn't reading much in October. But she's really cool and I highly suggest you go check her out. January is going to be the first book I read of the year, and that's Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. It's the start of a new trilogy focused on a character from the Raven Cycle. So if you haven't read the Raven Cycle, you don't necessarily need to read the Raven Cycle to understand what goes on in this book, but there are some references to the Raven Cycle that you would definitely enjoy if you had read the Raven Cycle before reading this book. So basically, this is about a character named Ronan who can... I don't want to do that because that's kind of a spoiler. I can't really talk about this book without spoiling what happens in The Raven Boys, which is the first book of the Raven Cycle. So like, I'm not gonna talk about like the main plot. I'm just gonna leave you with, yeah, it's a sequel, but not really a sequel. It's a sequel trilogy to the Raven Cycle, but it's a sequel trilogy that you don't necessarily have had to read the Raven Cycle to enjoy. But I'm not gonna tell you what it's about because it's a spoiler for the Raven Boys, if you haven't read that. Next is February, and I actually reread The Song of Achilles in February, so I was gonna pick that, but then I was like, no, I shouldn't pick that. Like, it was a reread, it doesn't really count. So instead I went with Fence Volume 3. So I read all 3 volumes of Fence in February, and this one was my favorite. So I was like, yep, Fence Volume 3 it is. Even though, you know, I love The Song of Achilles. Again, I can't really tell you what Fence Volume 3 is about because it's Volume 3. But I can tell you that Fence as a whole is about this guy named Nicholas who is like an amateur fencer. He goes to like a fencing competition and he gets totally owned by this guy named Seiji. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name actually. But yeah. And so he ends up going to a private school and being roommates with him, and there's like a whole rivals thing going on between them. And it's about fencing and Nicholas trying to prove himself as a good fencer. Next is March, and for March I picked another graphic novel. I went with The Backstagers Volume 2. The Backstagers Volume 2, again, is the second volume, so I can't really talk about what happens in it. But The Backstagers as a whole, or what happens in Volume 1, is that there are a group of theater techs in high school, I believe, and they have like this door that like leads to like a fantastical like shop essentially. So like that's where they get their like painting and carpentry and props and costumes, and all of that shit is like from this magic fantastical place that you can only access if you're like a tech and have like access to the door. It's really cool. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's really cute. I definitely recommend it, especially if you love theater and especially if you love technical theater. But yeah, it's good. So April was the worst month to try and choose a favorite from, just because 1, I read so many books, and 2, so many of those books were fucking amazing. So I read like The House in the Cerulean... I finished The House in the Cerulean Sea in April. I read Spellhacker in April. I read Empire of Light in April. I read Heartstopper Volume 3 in April. I read Check Please Book 2 in April. And I read Darius the Great Is Not Okay in April. I read all of those books, and despite reading all of those books, I had to pick a favorite, and my favorite is The Fever King. I specifically didn't mention it when I was listing off books because I wanted it to be a surprise. I read The Fever King in April, and y'all know by this point that I love The Fever King. It's no secret. It's kind of part of my brand now, I feel like. Like, the Song of Achilles is definitely my brand, but like, I feel like my new brand is The Fever King, so like, I had to pick it. I'm sorry. The Fever King is about a guy who lives in this world where there's this virus that either kills you or it turns you into a witching. Witching is basically a fancy term for a person who has like superpowers. The magic system is really cool because you have to know about the science behind the magic, and speaking of science behind the magic, you should go watch Angela over at Literature Science Alliance's Science Behind the Magic series. It's really cool. Anyway, The Fever King also has a queer romance in it. It's really good. It's a good slow burn. And there's also some trigger warnings for abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. And there's a lot of political intrigue in it. But anyway, that's what The Fever King is about, in case you didn't know. And I love it. Next is May. And I read The Electric Air in May. But since I've already talked about The Fever King, I'm going to talk about a different book that I read in May. And that's The Extraordinaries. So The Extraordinaries didn't actually come out until July. But since I ordered a book from Beach Books for the first time, this was actually the first arc they sent me. They sent me an arc of The Extraordinaries with my order. So I read it in May. And it was, it was so good. It is so good. I love it to death, honestly. I can't wait for the next book to come out next year. The Extraordinaries is about this kid named Nick who is obsessed with Shadowstar, I believe the name is. He's a superhero. So he's obsessed with Shadowstar, and he writes like fan fiction, and the fan fiction is in the book, and it's incredible. Because it is, I don't know how TJ Klune did it. I don't know how he did it. He like captured everything about fan fiction like in this. It was so good. But yeah, then he meets Shadowstar and wants to become a superhero so that he can be with Shadowstar, essentially. It's really good. It's really queer. I love it, and you should read it if you haven't already. Next is June. In June, I read an arc of Cemetery Boys. So, Cemetery Boys was my favorite book of June, obviously, because I read it as a digital arc, and I flew through it so fast, and I didn't even have my e-reader yet, so it was on my phone. It was so good. Cemetery Boys, if you aren't aware, is about this trans guy named Yadriel who is trying to prove himself as a brujo, and he ends up summoning the wrong spirit and then can't get rid of the spirit and the spirit's name is Julian. So, you know, it's really good. I highly recommend it. Next in July, I read The Sound of Stars. So, The Sound of Stars is about it's dual perspective. So, one perspective is a human who is living through an alien invasion, and she really likes books, but books are contraband, so she runs this illegal library, and then one of the aliens finds her book, like one of her books. The other perspective is one of the aliens, who is a lesser alien because he was made in a lab, and basically it's him dealing with the repercussions of like what he's done. And he also really likes music, so he's trying to keep that on the down low, because music is forbidden. And him and the human go on a road trip, and it's really good. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the relationships in it. I really enjoyed the like world building in it. Like it was really good. Next is August, and you know I wasn't gonna do Darius dirty, so August is Darius the Great Deserves Better. Darius the Great Deserves Better is the sequel to Darius the Great Is Not Okay, which unfortunately I read in April with all of the other good books. But in August it was a no-brainer because I read this book and not much else stood out besides this book. So in the first book, Darius and his family visit his grandparents in Iran, and it's him learning about Persian culture. And he also has depression, so it's about like depression too, and it's also about friendship because there's a really good friendship in that book too. Darius the Great Deserves Better is a sequel to that. It takes place in the States after Darius comes back, and like it's him dealing with like depression still, but like also like having a boyfriend for the first time, and it's just really good. You have to read the first book to really understand what's going on in this book. But I definitely recommend both of the books because they're just phenomenal. September was a little hard because I didn't read that much in September, and what I picked I finished in October, so I don't really count it that well, but like I wanted to talk about it because I mean I've talked about it enough, I feel like. But anyway, the book I chose is Loveless. Loveless is an Aro Ace coming of age story. And yeah, that's really the best way to describe it, without going too much into it. I really enjoyed it as an asexual person with aromantic tendencies. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, even though it took me forever to read. I was just in a huge reading slump and I didn't want to read. October is actually a book that I don't own, and that's Ravensong. So I didn't read a lot in October either, but I did listen to Ravensong, and that's the second book in the Green Creek series, the first being Wolfsong, and I read Wolfsong back in February. I didn't enjoy it as much because I read it in the print form, and I just didn't like it that much, but the sequel follows a different character after the events of Wolfsong, and it was better. And the series just kept getting better. Heartsong is my favorite actually, and that's the third book. But the fourth book is really good too. I finished that recently. Ravensong is a sequel to Wolfsong, so I can't really tell you what it's about. So in Wolfsong there are gay werewolves and this really big bad werewolf that they're trying to defeat. And that's really all I can tell you. If you like werewolves, it's definitely the series for you, but it's really angsty, so I will warn you about that. The audiobooks are definitely the way to go with the series. The narrator is incredible, and the actual books are really chunky, and TJ Klune uses repetitive things, so it can get kind of annoying if you're physically reading it, but when you're listening to it, it's so much better. It is so much better. So I highly recommend the Green Creek audiobooks. For November, I decided on The Tower of Nero. You'll have already seen my November wrap up, I think, by this point. I haven't done anything with it as of yet, but I'm going to, and you'll hopefully see it before this video. The Tower of Nero was the conclusion to the Trials of Apollo series, so again, can't really talk about the plot too much. But the Trials of Apollo series is basically about Apollo from the Percy Jackson series coming down to Earth as a mortal, and he has to go through all these trials to try and get his immortality back. It's really good. You get to revisit characters from the Percy Jackson series. And when I say Percy Jackson series, I mean both the original and Heroes of Olympus. So it's really good. It's a really good conclusion. I love it a lot. And yeah, it was my favorite book of November. And then finally for December, I haven't actually read that many books. It's really early December, like I'm filming this on the 4th of December. But, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. It's the summer of everything. I actually just finished this book today. It's really fucking good. It's basically about this main character who really he graduated high school, but he doesn't really know what he wants to do in college and with his life, essentially. And he's also crushing on his best friend, and he's trying to figure out a way to tell his best friend that he's in love with him. But he also works at a bookstore, and the bookstore may be bought by a coffee shop. So there's all these things going on. It's really good though. It handles the topics that it like presents so well. Julian Winters, who's the author, I notice I haven't said the authors for like anything except for like Call Down the Hawk because I was starting strong. But Julian Winters like is amazing. He truly is. That's why I moved all of his books up to my favorite shelf. So those are all of my books that I read in 2020. Let me know in the comments what were some of your favorite books of 2020. And yeah, I was gonna try and think of an emoji you could leave if you watched until the end, but I can't think of anything. So if you want to, just leave a book emoji, I guess. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.